Okay, I want you to try something for me. Wherever you are right now, maybe you're driving, maybe you're at the gym, or, maybe you're just sitting on your couch. Close your eyes for a second. Imagine you are walking down a set of concrete stairs into a basement club. It's late. Maybe it's 1950s Chicago, or maybe it's a smoky joint in the Village in New York. The air is thick, smells of old wood and cigarettes. You're holding a drink, the ice is melting against the glass. And on the small stage in the corner, there's a guitarist or maybe a singer leaning into a microphone. And they hit a note.
I know exactly where you're going with this.
It's that specific sound. It's not a clean, polite note. It bends. It sounds like it's crying or maybe screaming a little bit. It feels a little off, strictly speaking, like it's sliding off the shelf, but it grabs you right in the gut. It feels, well, inevitable.
That visceral reaction, that feeling, that sensation that it's twisting your insides in the best possible way. That is the power of the Blue Note.
Exactly. And honestly, for years, I just chalked that up to soul. I thought, oh, that musician is just playing with emotion. I thought it was purely stylistic, like wearing a fedora or singing with a rasp. But we have a stack of research on the table today that says my assumption was completely wrong.
It's not just wrong, it's kind of missing the entire point. That sound isn't just a feeling, it's a collision. It's a mathematical, cultural, and physical collision between two completely different universes of sound.
So today on the Deep Dive, we are unpacking the Blue Note. We're going to find out why a note that is technically wrong, according to Western music theory, feels so incredibly right to the human ear.
And to do that, we're going to have to talk about physics, we're going to talk about history, and maybe most surprisingly, we're going to talk about why the piano, the instrument we all think of as the gold standard for being in tune, is actually, well, lying to you.
I do love a good conspiracy, especially a musical one. So let's start with the basics. If we strip away all the romance and the smoke and the whiskey, what exactly is a Blue Note?
Okay, so if we look at the literature, the music theory definitions, a Blue Note is a note that is sung or played at a slightly different pitch than what exists in the standard European scale.
Slightly different. It's doing a lot of heavy lifting there.
It is a lot, because it's not just a little sharp or a little flat by accident. It's consistently, intentionally altered. Typically, it sits somewhere between a quarter tone and a semitone, lower than the standard note.
Okay, let's pause and define terms, because we promise we won't leave anyone behind. A semitone.
Right, a semitone. So just visualize a piano keyboard. You play a white key, then you play the black key right next to it. That jump, that interval, that is a semitone. In Western music, that is usually the smallest step you can possibly take. It's sort of the atom of our musical system.
Okay, so you're saying a Blue Note lives inside that step.
Exactly. It's microtonal. It lives in the crack between the white key and the black key. It's a frequency that the piano literally does not have a button for.
One of the sources we looked at used a term I really liked. It called it a worried note.
Yes, and that's a very old term for it. It originates from the early blues lexicon. And it fits, doesn't it?
It does. Worried implies it's not settled. It's anxious.
Yeah.
It's looking for a place to land. It's like a person pacing back and forth in a room.
And that anxiety, that lack of resolution, that is the engine of the entire genre of blues and, of course, jazz.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the mission for this deep dive. We want to understand why it sounds worried. Is it just cultural conditioning? Or is there something in the actual physics of the sound wave that makes our brains go, wait a minute, something's going on here?
And the answer seems to be yes.
The answer is a resounding yes. We're going to see that what a European music teacher might call a mistake is actually a precise adherence to the laws of physics, specifically a system called just intonation.
Okay, we're definitely going to get into the heavy math in a bit. And I warn you, it involves prime numbers, which sounds terrifying, but it's actually really cool. But let's map this out first. The mechanics. Where do these notes actually live? If I'm looking at a scale, which notes are the worried ones?
So there are three main culprits. The research always identifies them as the lowered third, the lowered seventh, and the lowered fifth.
Lowered meaning flattened.
Correct. So if you take a standard major scale, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, and you take the third note or the fifth note or the seventh note and you flatten them just a bit, you enter Blue Note territory.
But you said flatten them, which still implies we're taking a correct note and then modifying it.
And that is the trap of language. It really is. We say lowered or flattened because we are using the European major scale as our reference point. We're defining the Blue Note by what it is not. But from the perspective of the Blue Note itself, it's exactly where it's supposed to be.
It's not lowered, it's just home.
It's just home, right. Now, the lowered fifth is particularly interesting. Sometimes you'll hear musicians refer to it as the raised fourth.
Depending on if you're sliding up to it or sliding down from it.
Precisely. It occupies that ambiguous, muddy space right between the fourth and the fifth degree of the scale. And it creates this incredible tension. It's often called the devil's interval or the tritone in classical theory because it sounds so unstable.
But in blues, that instability is the whole point.
It's the feature, not the bug. It's the grit in the oyster that makes the pearl.
Okay, so we have these notes. They exist in the cracks. This brings up a massive logistical problem that I never really thought about until I read through all this stuff. The instrument problem.
The hardware problem. Yeah.
Right. If I'm a blues singer, I can just sing the note. My vocal cords are flexible. I can slide up, slide down. I can hover in the middle. Same if I'm playing the slide guitar. I just move the metal bar to wherever I want it to be.
Exactly. Those are continuous pitch instruments. You have infinite granularity. You can play any frequency you want within your range.
But the piano. The piano is the backbone of so much of this music. I mean, think of Ray Charles. Think of Thelonious Monk. But the piano has fixed keys. You cannot play in the crack.
You absolutely cannot. The piano is a digital machine in an analog world. It's either on or off, note A or note B. There is no note A and a half.
So how on earth did piano players become the legends of blues and jazz if their instrument physically cannot play the blue note?
They had to hack the system. They had to invent these acoustic illusions.
Illusions? You mean like magic tricks?
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
Think about it. If you can't play the pitch that sits right between E and E flat, what do?
I guess you play them both.
You play them both. This is the famous crush or slur. If you watch a great blues pianist, look at their fingers. They will often strike a major key and a minor key at the same time, or they'll do this rapid slide with their finger from the black key onto the white key.
That crunchy sound.
Exactly. They are literally mashing two contradictory notes together to trick your ear into hearing the average of the two. They are trying to simulate that microtonal worry by creating a dissonance.
It's almost like pointillism in painting. You know, you put a red dot next to a blue dot, and from a distance your eye sees purple. They're putting a major note next to a minor note to make it sound blue.
That is a perfect analogy. You are forcing the ear to blend the information. And this leads to the second way they create that sound, which is what theorists call the conflict of tonalities.
Okay, break that down for me.
So the blues scale, because of those flat notes, it has an inherently minor tonality. It sounds darker, sadder, you could say.
Sure, minor usually equals sad in our culture. That makes sense.
But in jazz and blues, the band, the rhythm section, is often playing chords that are major. They are playing happy, bright, dominant chords.
So the band is playing happy, but the singer is singing sad.
At the exact same time. And that is a fascinating phenomenon. In classical European theory, that is a huge no-no. You just don't play a minor third melody over a major third chord. It clashes. It sounds wrong.
It's dissonance.
It is. It's a deliberate clash. It's like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. But instead of stopping, you just jam it in there. And the friction, the heat generated by that clash, that's what makes the music so exciting.
The notes mentioned a few examples of this. Why Don't You Do Right was one.
A classic standard. Peggy Lee, yeah. If you listen to her melody line versus the bass line, they are constantly fighting each other. The bass is walking in a major mode, giving you that strut, and she is singing those crushed minor notes right on top of it.
And it doesn't sound wrong. It just sounds cool. It sounds sophisticated.
It sounds cool because it creates tension. And human brains, we love tension as long as it gets resolved eventually. We crave that little bit of danger in the sound.
There was a modern example, too, which really surprised me. Happy.
Pharrell Williams.
Yeah. I do not think of Happy as a blues song. It's the song from Despicable Me. It's maybe the most cheerful song on earth.
Stylistically, it's not a blues song, no. But structurally, it's using the exact same trick. The vocal melody in Happy uses the minor blues scale. He's hitting those flat thirds and flat sevenths. But the backing track, it's just bright, sunny, major chords.
So even in a pop song that's explicitly about being happy, the catchiness comes from that underlying mathematical conflict.
That's it. Or Take Sweet About Me by Gabriella Cilmi. That song is built entirely on the friction between the minor scale of the melody and the major backing. That dissonant conflict, as we called it, grabs your ear because your brain is trying to resolve it and it can't quite do it.
It keeps you on the hook.
It does.
Yeah.
But here's where we need to pivot, because we've been describing this as a clash. We've been describing it as a hack or a trick.
Right. Like the musicians are breaking the rules.
But what if I told you that the singer isn't the one who is out of tune? What if the piano is the one that's wrong?
Okay, now we are entering the matrix. This is section 2, the science.
Let's put on the lab coats. To really understand the Blue Note, we have to understand the war between two tuning systems, just intonation and equal temperament.
These terms always scare people off, but let's try and demystify them. Just intonation.
Just intonation is basically the physics of the universe. It is the natural way sound behaves.
How so?
Okay, imagine a guitar string. You pluck it. It vibrates back and forth along its whole length. That's the fundamental note. But it doesn't just vibrate that way. It also vibrates in halves, and in thirds, and in quarters, all at the same time.
These are the overtones, the harmonics.
Right, the harmonic series. And the relationship between all these vibrations is actually very simple math. It's integer ratios. A perfect octave is a 2-to-1 ratio. A perfect fifth is a 3-to-2 ratio.
So nature likes whole numbers.
Nature loves simple whole numbers, and human beings naturally understand this. Our brains are wired for it. Infants react to these simple ratios. It's how we process speech. It's how we identify voices. So just intonation is a tuning system based on these pure mathematical physics ratios.
Okay, so that's system A, the natural system. What is system B?
System B is 12-tone equal temperament. This is the European system. This is what your piano is tuned to.
And it's not natural.
No, it's an artificial compromise. A very clever one, but a compromise nonetheless.
Why would they compromise? If nature gave us this perfect system, why would anyone mess with it?
Because of a very specific math problem that has a great name. It's called the Wolf interval.
Sounds ominous, like something from a fairy tale.
It is. See, if you tune strictly by the natural laws of physics, using those perfect 32 ratios, and you try to go around the circle of all 12 keys, the math doesn't close the loop. You end up with a gap. The final note doesn't perfectly match the starting note. It drifts.
So you can't change keys easily.
Exactly. If you tune a piano perfectly to C major using physics, it will sound absolutely angelic in C major. But if you try to play an F sharp, it will sound like a horror movie. The intervals just get warped and out of whack.
So Western music decided, we want to be able to play in every key. That was the priority.
Right. They wanted standardization. They wanted to build these complex machines like organs and pianos that could modulate from one key to another without stopping to retune the whole thing. So they cheated.
They cheated physics.
They cheated physics. They took that gap, that mathematical error, that little leftover bit called a comma, and they spread it out evenly across all 12 notes. They slightly flattened every single fifth. They made every interval just a tiny bit out of tune with nature so that they could all be equally spaced.
They forced a kind of perfect symmetry onto an asymmetrical universe.
That is perfectly put. So when you play a so-called perfect fifth on a piano, it is not actually perfect. It is about 2 cents flat compared to the true laws of physics.
Okay, you mentioned cents. Let's establish that metric because it's really important for what comes next.
Right. A cent is just a tiny unit of measure for pitch. Imagine we take a semitone, that one step on the piano, from a white key to a black key, and we chop it up into 100 tiny equal slices. Each one of those slices is a cent. So an octave is 1,200 cents.
Okay, so the piano is gridlocked. It can only do 100, 200, 300 cents, and so on.
Correct. It's a ruler with strict inch marks. There's nothing in between.
Now bring this back to the Blue Note.
Okay, here is the aha moment. Researchers have actually analyzed historical recordings of early blues singers and field haulers. They've used technology to measure the exact pitch of these worried notes in cents.
I know.
They don't line up with the piano keys at all, but they do line up almost perfectly with the harmonic series.
Wait a minute. So the blue notes are actually the natural notes.
Yes, they are the notes that Western equal temperament had to delete to make its system work.
That completely flips the whole script. We usually think of blues as this gritty, raw, unpolished thing, and classical music as this refined, perfect, mathematical thing.
But you're saying the blues is actually more scientifically accurate.
In terms of pure harmonic physics, yes. Let's look at the numbers from the research.
Hit me with the data.
Let's take the blue third.
Yeah.
On a piano, you have 2 choices.
Yeah.
A minor third is 300 cents. A major third is 400 cents.
The blue third, that neutral sound that slides between them, empirically centers at around 316 cents.
3/6.
That measurement corresponds to a ratio of 65. It is a pure natural interval that exists in the harmonic series, but the piano has nowhere to put it. So the piano offers you 300 to 400. The blues singer just sings 316.
And that's why it feels like it's in the cracks. It's not just sliding around randomly. It's aiming for a very specific physical target.
It is aiming for the just intonation interval every time. Now let's look at the blue fifth. This one is even weirder. It clusters around 583 cents.
Which is close to that tritone, the devil's interval.
It is, but the ratio is 75.
75.
And now look at the blue seventh. The data shows there are two main spots where this note shows up. One is at 969 cents. That is a 74 ratio.
I'm definitely noticing a pattern here.
Yeah.
75. 74.
You spot the prime numbers.
The number 7.
This is the prime number theory of blue notes. Western music is largely built on the prime numbers 2, 3, and 5. The number 7. Well, Western theory is terrified of the number 7.
Why? Is it unlucky or something?
In a musical way, yes, because it doesn't fit the grid. Harmonics based on the 7th overtone sound off or dissonant to ears that have been trained their whole lives in equal temperament. They don't slot neatly into the 12-tone system. They are messy.
So when a blues musician leans on that blues 7th, they're introducing a harmonic complexity, the prime number 7 that the European ear just wasn't used to hearing.
Exactly. It's a collision of mathematical universes. You have the 2 and 3 universe of the piano and the formal orchestra clashing with the 7 and 11 universe of the human voice.
Collision of mathematical universes. That is a brilliant way to put it. It explains the tension perfectly. It's not just sad, it's a little alien in a way.
It's alien to the system, but it's native to the human soul. Because remember, humans are born understanding the harmonic series. We intuitively feel that 74 ratio is right, even if our piano tells us it's wrong.
So where did this come from? If the piano and the orchestra didn't do it, who kept these natural notes alive?
And this brings us to section 3, the origins. Because this refusal to adopt equal temperament isn't an accident. It's a cultural inheritance.
Sam, we're talking about the African connection.
We are. The overwhelming consensus among ethnomusicologists is that the blues is a fusion product. It is what happened when African musical systems based in just intonation met European instruments.
Tell us a bit more about those African systems.
Well, in many West African musical traditions, just intonation is simply the norm. The instruments they use, like the kora or the balafon and the vocal styles, are tuned to the natural harmonic series. They aren't trying to change keys every 5 minutes in the Western sense, so they never had a need to temper their scale. They kept the pure thirds. They kept the pure sevenths.
So when enslaved Africans were brought to America, they brought that internal tuning, that sonic memory with them.
Exactly. And think about the field hollers, the a cappella singing in the fields.
Right, no pianos in the fields.
Yeah. No pianos, no organ to tell them you're out of tune. So they sang in perfect accordance with physics. They sang those 74 intervals, they sang those neutral thirds, they were maintaining a highly sophisticated acoustic tradition simply by using their voices, uncorrupted by any accompaniment.
And then
Eventually they get access to Western instruments, guitars, pianos, harmoniums, and now you have a conflict. A real one.
The internal ear says sing the 74 ratio, but the guitar fret says, sorry, I only have this note or that note.
And that is the birth of the blue note. It is the sound of a musician physically bending the Western instrument to try and make it speak the African language.
Bending the instrument to speak the language. So the bend isn't just a stylistic effect, it's a correction.
It is a correction. They are bending the string to find the note that their ear tells them should be there. They are forcing the guitar to be honest with physics.
That is incredible. It completely recontextualizes the history of the whole genre. It's not just folksy improvisation. It's a sophisticated retention of a specific harmonic system against a new system that tried to erase it.
Absolutely. And we should clarify, while this African-European collision is the most famous example, this phenomenon of bent notes isn't unique to America.
The source notes mention Ireland, right?
Yes. In traditional Irish music, especially Sean Nose singing, they have what they call long notes. These are notes that are inflected, bent, or held at pitches that don't sit perfectly on the piano scale.
So the Irish immigrants and the African slaves might have had more in common musically than either of them realized.
There is a lot of scholarship on that overlap, especially in places like the Appalachian Mountains where those cultures mix to create bluegrass and American folk. That high, lonesome sound, that is the sound of just intonation crying out.
And in English folk music, too.
Yes, the blue feeling exists there. And even in standard pop music, the source material brings up Harold Arlen, who wrote Stormy Weather and all the music for The Wizard of Oz. He was a cantor's son. He grew up with Jewish liturgical music, which also uses modes and scales that don't fit neatly into the major-minor system. He wrote blue melodies because that was his sonic heritage.
It seems like every culture, except the really rigid European classical tradition, was perfectly okay with these in-between notes.
Standardization is the outlier. Most of human musical history is microtonal. Most of human history is flexible. The piano is the exception, not the rule.
I want to circle back to one specific thing in the research that just blew my mind. The barbershop quartet.
Ah, yes, the barbershop surprise.
Be honest, when I say barbershop, you think of four white guys in straw hats and striped vests singing, "Hello, Ma Baby."
I mean, usually, yes. It's seen as very vanilla, very old-timey Americana.
But the math says otherwise.
The math says barbershop is incredibly blue.
How is that possible?
It comes right back to that 74 ratio, the blue seventh. In barbershop harmony, there's a specific chord they just love. It's their money chord. It's called the harmonic seventh.
A harmonic seventh.
It is the dominant seventh chord, but it's tuned perfectly to the harmonic series. They tune that seventh degree way down to 969 cents.
The exact same number as the Delta blues singers.
The exact same number. And because barbershop is a cappella, they can do that. They don't have a piano holding them back, forcing them into equal temperament.
And why do they do it? Is it just tradition?
No, it's physics again. It's because of something they call the ring. In barbershop, the goal is to lock and ring a chord. If you tune the ratios perfectly, using just intonation, the overtones of the four voices line up so perfectly that you literally hear a fifth voice, a phantom high note that nobody is actually singing.
So the physics of it actually amplifies the sound.
Yes, but to get that ring, you must use the blue seventh. You cannot use the equal-tempered seventh from the piano. It won't ring. It will just sound like a thud.
So barbershop quartets and Delta blues singers are both chasing the same ghost.
They are both chasing the same just intonation ghost. And historically, the roots of barbershop as a practice are likely African-American as well. The barbershop was a community hub in Black communities long before it was co-opted and codified. The style of tight harmony singing was there.
So the straw hats came later. The math was there from the start.
The math was there from the start. It all connects back to the human voice and the raw physics of sound.
Wow. This has been a massive download. We've covered the mechanics, the physics, the history. If we zoom out, what is the story here? What is the headline for the Blue Note?
I think the story is one of survival.
Survival.
Think about it. Think about the pressure of the European musical system. It had the money. It had the institutions. It had the manufacturing power of the piano industry. It completely standardized the way the entire Western world hears music. It tried to put us all on a grid.
Tried to flatten the world.
But it failed. The Blue Note is the evidence of that failure. It's a piece of raw physics, just intonation, that survived through oral traditions, through the trauma of slavery, through the field haulers, and it managed to hack its way into the dominant system.
It's like a virus in the software.
It is. And that virus gave us jazz. It gave us rock and roll. It gave us R&B and soul. None of that would exist if the African traditions had just accepted the European scale without a fight.
So the friction is the point.
The friction is the art. That dissonant conflict we talked about earlier, that's not just music theory. That is the literal sound of two cultures wrestling with each other. And the result is something beautiful and new.
That is a really profound way to look at it. Next time I hear a blues guitarist bend a string, I'm not just going to hear a cool sound. I'm going to hear a rebellion.
A rebellion against the grid.
I want to leave our listener with one final thought to chew on.
Go for it.
We spend our whole lives being told that the piano is the reference point. If you sing a note that isn't on the keys, you are wrong. You are out of tune.
That's the lesson. Yep.
But today we learned that the Blue Note is based on the natural harmonic laws of the universe. It is physically pure. The piano is the one that has been compromised. The piano is the one that's lying to us to make the math easier.
It's a convenient lie, but it is a lie nonetheless.
So the next time you hear a singer hit a blue note and it sounds a little off to your ear, I want you to ask yourself a question. Who is actually out of tune? You or the piano?
I think we know the answer now.
Thanks for diving deep with us today.
It was a pleasure.